When we think of time, we usually imagine something outside of ourselves. A clock on the wall, your phone, the position of the sun in the sky. These are the ways we measure time in the outside world. But deep inside your brain, another kind of clock is always running. It's quiet, invisible, and far less precise than the ones we carry in our pockets or hang on our walls. And yet, it's the one that really shapes how you feel the passing of your minutes and hours. This inner clock isn't a single organ or one neat little machine. It's not like you have a tiny grandfather clock hidden behind your forehead. Instead, it's a network spread across different areas of the brain, working together like members of an orchestra. Scientists believe that several regions take part in this hidden timekeeping. The basal ganglia, which helps coordinate movement and rhythm. The cerebellum, which fine-tunes actions and timing. And the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in planning, attention, and decision-making. Each of these regions contributes a piece to the puzzle. Alone, none of them are enough, but together they create the sense of now and of moments stacking one after another. One common model scientists use to describe this process is called the pacemaker accumulator model. Imagine for a moment that inside your brain there is a tiny metronome clicking away like the beat of a drum. With every tick, your brain produces a pulse. And just like an old-fashioned tally counter, those pulses are collected and stored. The more pulses you collect, the more time you think has passed. When you compare your collection of pulses to some standard, say, the swing of a pendulum or the ticking of a clock, you come up with your estimate of how much time has gone by. But unlike the precise tick-tock of a real metronome, your brain's pacemaker is far from perfect. Sometimes it speeds up. Sometimes it slows down. Sometimes it even skips beats entirely. And what influences this rhythm is not just biology, but your feelings, your focus, and even the chemicals floating through your brain at any given moment. One of the most important chemicals in this system is dopamine. Dopamine is often called the reward chemical, but it's really more like a regulator of motivation, movement, and attention. It has a powerful effect on your internal clock. When dopamine levels are high, your inner pacemaker tends to tick faster. Imagine you're at a concert and your favorite song comes on. The lights are flashing, the crowd is alive, your heart is racing. In those moments, hours can pass before you realize it. Your dopamine is elevated, your pacemaker is racing, and so your brain underestimates the passage of time. It feels shorter than it really is. On the other hand, when dopamine levels are lower, your pacemaker slows down. Think about sitting in a waiting room, staring at a blank wall, no music, no excitement, no novelty, just the dull tick of a second hand. Dopamine drops, your pacemaker drags, and each minute feels swollen, stretched, almost unbearable. This is why boredom is so heavy. It isn't just unpleasant, it literally distorts time. And dopamine isn't the only influence. Attention plays a role too. When you focus closely on time itself, say, watching the clock during the last 10 minutes of class, your perception of it expands. Every second feels exaggerated. But when your attention is pulled away, like when you're lost in a book or a conversation, time compresses. You don't notice the seconds slipping by, and when you finally look up, you realize that whole hours have vanished. All of this shows that your brain is not a neutral observer of time. It is an active participant, shaping and reshaping the flow of your minutes. Scientists sometimes compare it to music. A perfectly tuned metronome would be like a rigid drum machine, never missing a beat. But your brain is more like a jazz band. It keeps rhythm, but it improvises. It speeds up when the mood is high. It slows down when the mood is low. It bends the beat depending on who's listening and how they feel. And unlike a mechanical clock, which runs steadily whether you notice it or not, your inner clock depends on your awareness. If you're distracted, if your mind wanders, your sense of time goes with it. Have you ever driven home on a familiar road and, upon arriving, realized you can't remember the details of the drive? Your brain was on autopilot, not collecting pulses in a way you can later recall. The time passed, but your sense of it barely exists. Moments like these remind us that time perception isn't just about counting. It's about noticing. Even the rhythms of your body feed into this internal clock. Your heartbeat, your breathing, your circadian rhythms, all are intertwined with the way you feel time. Slow your breathing, and time itself seems to slow with it. Speed up your heartbeat with exercise or fear, and the moments blur. Monks practicing deep meditation often describe the sensation of timelessness, or of being in an eternal present. Part of that may come from calming the body's rhythms until the usual ticking of the brain's clock feels irrelevant. What's fascinating is that the brain doesn't just track time in one way. There seem to be multiple clocks working on different scales. One helps you tap your foot in rhythm to a song. Another helps you know how long you've been talking. Another helps you track the flow of hours across a day. These clocks may overlap, but they are not identical, and when they fall out of sync, your perception can fracture. This may be why jet lag feels so strange. Your body's circadian clock is misaligned with the light around you, and so the world's time and your body's time no longer match. So when you think of time, don't imagine a single ticking hand. Think instead of a whole orchestra inside your head, each instrument keeping its own rhythm, each section playing its own part. Sometimes they are in harmony, and time feels smooth. Sometimes they fall out of sync, and time feels strange. But either way, you are never just watching the clock. You are creating it. And as you let that idea sink in, you might even notice your own perception of time right now. Is it stretching as you listen? Is it shrinking? Is it steady or already starting to soften as your eyelids grow heavy? That is your hidden clock, shaping your very experience of this moment. There are moments in life when time doesn't just feel fast or slow. It feels like it breaks, like it's no longer behaving the way you expect. People who have lived through car crashes often describe the same eerie sensation. The moment of impact feels stretched, slowed down, like an action scene in a movie. They recall seeing shards of glass sparkle in midair, each one suspended as if floating. They recall hearing the crunch of metal echoing in the long detail, as if the sound unfolded in slow motion. Some even say they could think clearly, forming whole sentences in their minds while only a second or two passed in the outside world. This phenomenon is not magic, but a trick of the brain. When you are in danger, a deep part of your brain, the amygdala, springs into action. The amygdala is like the alarm system of your nervous system. It scans for threats, and when it senses one, it floods your body with stress hormones like adrenaline. Your heart races, your breathing quickens, your muscles tense, and at the same time, your memory systems switch into overdrive. The amygdala directs the hippocampus, the part of the brain that records experiences, to capture as much detail as possible. You become hyper-aware. Every image, every sound, every texture is recorded with unusual sharpness. Later, when you recall the event, your memory is dense with information. More details per second than you would normally have. And when you replay those dense memories, your mind interprets them as lasting longer than they did. This is why traumatic moments feel stretched. It's not that time itself slowed down. It's that you experienced more of it. You lived more data in the same number of seconds. Skydivers often report something similar. The first time they jump, they swear the fall lasted an eternity. Their minds race, their senses widen, and the 1-minute descent feels like 10. But after a few jumps, once the novelty wears off and the fear lessens, the same fall feels much shorter. The brain is no longer recording at maximum density. It has learned what to expect, and so the flow of time contracts again. Athletes sometimes describe entering what they call the zone. A basketball player might say the hoop looks huge, as if it slowed down just for them. A baseball batter might feel they have all the time in the world to react to a fastball. What's happening here is not that the world itself has changed speed, but that their brain has tuned in with perfect focus. When the brain devotes all its resources to a single task, time feels expanded. The player sees more, processes faster, and so the external event seems too slow to match. The opposite can also happen. In moments of panic, time can collapse. Imagine fumbling for your phone during an emergency and realizing too late that 30 seconds have already passed. Your brain was overwhelmed, unable to keep up, and so your perception of those seconds vanishes. Instead of stretched detail, you get missing chunks. Stress doesn't always lengthen time. It can also erase it. Scientists have tested these effects in creative ways. In one experiment, people were dropped into a net from a tall tower. The fall lasted only a few seconds, but when asked to estimate the time afterward, participants consistently overestimated. Their sense of time expanded under fear. Yet when researchers gave them special watches designed to test perception mid-fall, the results showed that they weren't actually processing faster in real time. Their reaction times didn't improve. What changed was memory. Afterward, they recalled more detail, and that richness created the illusion of stretched seconds. Even small moments in daily life can trigger this. Think about waiting for medical results or watching the spinning wheel of your computer as a file loads. Stress makes your attention hover over every microsecond, stretching them unbearably. A 2-minute wait can feel like a half hour. And when the moment finally passes, you're surprised to see how little clock time has moved. It's fascinating that fear and novelty expand time, while routine and calm can make it contract. But there's also a sweet spot, those rare moments when time seems to slow not from terror, but from deep presence. Sitting at a campfire, listening to the crackle and watching sparks drift into the night. Lying in a hammock, with nothing urgent to do, each second seems thick and full. These moments are like the opposite of trauma. Instead of fear opening the senses, it's peace that does it. Your brain still records richly, and time stretches in a pleasant way. This shows that extreme time distortions are not always about danger. They are about intensity, fear, joy, awe. Any powerful emotion can expand the moment. People describe holding their newborn child for the first time and feeling as if the world stopped moving. Lovers talk about kisses that seemed to last forever, even if they were only seconds. These are not exaggerations, but honest reports of how the brain bends time under emotion. There are also cultural stories that echo this phenomenon. Ancient warriors often describe battle as if time slowed down. Samurai writings talk about moments where swords seem to hang in the air. Soldiers today still report the same thing under fire. Across centuries and continents, the experience of slow time and danger repeats. It seems to be a universal feature of human perception. Even dreams can capture this feeling. Have you ever had a dream that seemed to last hours or even days, only to wake and realize it happened in a few minutes of REM sleep? The brain in dream state is not bound by the clock. It expands and compresses time freely. Dreams are a nightly reminder that our sense of time is an illusion we carry with us. So the next time you hear someone say that a moment lasted forever or that time froze, know that there is real science behind it. The brain, in its attempt to keep you alive and aware, bends the seconds. Sometimes it expands them to let you react. Sometimes it compresses them to let you move forward, and sometimes it erases them altogether. And as you reflect on this, you might notice your own moments of stretched time. Maybe it was a near miss in traffic. Maybe it was a beautiful view that seemed to stop you in your tracks. Maybe it's happening now, as the quiet of this narration slows the tick of your inner clock. Time is not as steady as you think. It is elastic, expanding, and contracting with the rhythms of your life. When you think back to being a child, what do you remember about time? Most people describe summers that seemed endless, afternoons that stretched on forever, a single school year that felt like an entire chapter of life. Yet, as an adult, entire months vanish, almost unnoticed. You blink, and suddenly, it's autumn again. Weeks blend together, years collapse into a blur. The difference between childhood and adulthood is one of the clearest examples of how time perception changes across life. Why does this happen? One key explanation is novelty. Childhood is a time when almost everything you experience is new. Your first bike ride, your first day at school, your first best friend, the first time you see snow or the ocean or fireworks in the night sky. These events are unique, and your brain pays attention to them with intensity. Novelty sparks the release of dopamine, which, as we learned before, speeds up your internal pacemaker and enhances memory. The brain records these new experiences in rich, detailed layers. Later, when you look back, those memories feel long and full, stretching the sense of time. Compare that to adulthood. By the time you've driven to work 1,000 times, the route no longer registers as new. By the time you've made your morning coffee year after year, the brain no longer records it with detail. The days become routine. Familiar patterns don't get stored as thickly in memory, and so looking back, weeks collapse into nothing. It's not that the time passed faster in reality, it's that your memory recorded less. A classic way to describe this is memory is the ruler with which we measure time. The more events and details packed into memory, the longer the time feels. The fewer the details, the shorter it feels. Childhood is dense with memory. Adulthood is sparse. And so the summers of childhood seem endless, while the summers of adulthood vanish. Think of your first day at a new job. You probably remember where you sat, what you wore, even the smell of the office or the taste of your lunch. That single day might feel long in hindsight, but your 100th day at the same job, it passes with almost no distinct memory. It dissolves into routine. You could barely recall a single detail. This is why entire years in adulthood can feel like they disappear. But there is another factor as well: proportion. A year for a 5-year-old is 1/5 of their entire life. That's a huge chunk. For a 30-year-old, a year is only 1/30th. It feels proportionally smaller. And for someone in their 70s, a year is just a sliver of a lifetime. The older you get, the smaller each year seems in the context of your whole life. Time doesn't literally speed up. It just feels like it does, because the scale keeps shifting. Children also live more in the present. When you were a kid, an afternoon could feel eternal because you weren't worrying about tomorrow's chores or next week's bills. You were immersed in the moment. Adults, on the other hand, are often thinking ahead. We plan, schedule, and anticipate. Our attention isn't anchored in the present, and so we miss the depth of the now. The result? Time seems to slip past before we notice it. This idea has even been studied. Psychologists asked children and adults to estimate intervals of time. They found that children often overestimate, thinking more time has passed than actually has. Adults, by contrast, underestimate. Kids feel like time is slow. Adults feel like time is fast. And it's not just perception, it's lifestyle. As children, we are constantly learning. Every day introduces something new. New words, new rules, new games, new skills. Learning forces the brain to pay close attention, and attention is the fuel for memory. As adults, we fall into routines that demand less learning. We know the rules, we know the paths. The brain doesn't need to pay attention, so memory thins and time shrinks. Have you ever noticed that vacations seem longer than normal weeks? That's because vacations are filled with novelty. A week spent exploring a new city feels far richer than a week spent at your desk. A single day traveling, navigating strange streets, tasting new foods, hearing new languages, creates dozens of strong memories. Later, when you recall that day, it feels thick, almost expanded. Meanwhile, a week at home, even if it lasts the same number of hours, feels like nothing afterward. Your brain simply didn't record enough to make it stretch. This principle has practical implications. If you want time to feel fuller, seek novelty. Take a different route to work. Try a new recipe. Pick up a hobby, even a small one. Learning a language, tasting of food you've never tried, visiting a new park. These experiences thicken your memory and slow your perception of time. Childhood may be over, but you can recreate its richness by choosing novelty. There's also the question of attention. Children often focus on details that adults ignore. A child may stop to watch an ant crawl across the sidewalk for 10 minutes. To the child, those 10 minutes are vast, filled with the tiny drama of the insect's journey. An adult would glance once and move on. The child's attention turns small moments into full stretches of time. Adults, always rushing, skim over them. And so, in adulthood, time loses its weight. Technology plays a role too. Many adults spend hours scrolling through feeds, half aware, half distracted. The brain records little, and afterward, those hours vanish from memory. They are forgotten almost as soon as they happen. Contrast that with a child's afternoon of climbing trees, building forts, inventing games. Those hours will be remembered in detail. One feels like nothing. The other feels like forever. This is why so many people in midlife report the sensation of time speeding up. It's not a trick of the clock. It's the brain adapting to routine, skipping details, and storing less. The good news is that you can slow it down again. Novelty, learning, attention, and presence. These are the tools that thicken time. So the next time you feel like the years are racing by, remember that you have some control. Try something new. Pay close attention to small details. Break the routine. In doing so, you might recapture a little of that childhood sense of endless summers when the days stretched wide and the hours seemed generous. And as you reflect on this, think back to your own childhood. Can you recall a summer afternoon, perhaps lying in the grass, staring at the clouds? Can you remember the way time seemed to pause, the way an hour felt like a whole world? That sense is still within you. The brain that stretched those hours is the same brain you carry now. It only needs novelty and attention to wake that sense again. And perhaps, in listening to this now, in slowing down, you are already beginning to feel it. So far, we've been talking about time from a human perspective. But humans are only one species on this planet, and our sense of time is just one way of experiencing it. Other animals live in very different rhythms. Some move through life in what feels like slow motion, while others race through existence at speeds we can barely imagine. If time already feels slippery to us, it becomes even stranger when we look at how other creatures perceive it. Let's start small, very small, with the common housefly. To us, a fly seems impossibly quick. You raise your hand to swat it, and before you've even finished the motion, it has darted away. It feels like the fly anticipated your move, almost as if it could see into the future. But what's really happening is that the fly perceives time differently. Flies process visual information much faster than we do. Their eyes are made up of thousands of tiny lenses, each sending rapid bursts of data to their brain. While humans might perceive about 60 frames per second, a fly can process closer to 200. That means, to they fly, the world is running in a kind of slow motion. Your swatting hand, which feels fast to you, looks to the fly like a slow, predictable arc. It has plenty of time to escape. This phenomenon isn't unique to flies. Many small animals with fast metabolisms perceive time more quickly than we do. Hummingbirds, with their rapid wing beats, process visual and auditory cues at lightning speed. To them, the world is richer in detail, stretched out, giving them the agility to hover, dart, and sip nectar from flowers in midair. Meanwhile, larger animals with slower metabolisms like elephants or tortoises live on different time scales. Their perception of events may be slower, their reactions more measured. Scientists call this difference critical flicker fusion frequency, the speed at which a flashing light is perceived as steady. Humans fuse light at around 60 flashes per second. Flies and other insects can perceive flicker at much higher rates, meaning their brains can separate events that look instantaneous to us. What looks like a single blur to us might appear as a sequence of crisp images to them. In other words, their reality contains more slices of time per second than ours does. Think about what that means for daily life. To us, a candle flame flickers. To a fly, it might appear as a series of bursts, like a strobe light. A bird flying through a forest may see each branch and leaf in more detail than we can imagine. Their survival depends on it. Time perception in this way is not just an oddity. It is a tool shaped by evolution. Now consider your dog. Dogs live alongside us, but their sense of time is not identical. Many dog owners report that their pets seem to know exactly when it's time for a walk, or when their humans should be arriving home. Dogs don't read clocks, but they track time through cues we might not notice. Their sense of smell, for instance, is far beyond ours. Some scientists suggest that dogs can actually smell time. As the day passes, the concentration of scents in a house changes. A dog may learn that when a scent fades to a certain level, that's when their owner usually returns. For the dog, the passage of hours has a smell, a rhythm carried in molecules on the air. When dogs are left alone, their perception of time also differs from ours. Studies show that dogs become more excited when their owners return after 2 hours compared to 30 minutes, and even more so after longer absences. This suggests that they do have some sense of duration. But whether a dog feels bored, minutes stretch the way humans do, or whether they measure time in entirely different ways, is still an open question. Whales and dolphins, living in the ocean's vast expanse, experience time through sound. Their communication travels long distances underwater, and their perception of rhythm is tuned to the echoes of the sea. A humpback whale's song can last for 20 minutes, repeated for hours, forming patterns across time that are difficult for us to fully comprehend. For these creatures, time may not be a series of ticking seconds, but waves of sound and silence flowing endlessly through the deep. Then there are creatures that live astonishingly long lives, like giant tortoises, which can live over a century. Do they perceive a day the way we do, or does their slower pace of life stretch events differently? We can't ask them, but watching the calm, deliberate way a tortoise moves makes you wonder if time itself feels slower in their world. On the opposite end are tiny insects whose adult lives last only days, like mayflies. For them, a single sunrise and sunset might be the majority of their entire existence. To a mayfly, a day is a lifetime. To us, it's just Tuesday. Even within the human world, cultural rhythms shift time. A city dweller rushing through subway stations lives in a different time rhythm than a farmer who watches the sun's slow arc across the fields. Technology speeds our perception, making us impatient with delays of even a few seconds. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, slower traditions still anchor daily life, with rituals and routines stretching across hours. Time, it seems, is not just biological, but cultural. All of this raises a fascinating point. There is no single universal perception of time. Each species, and even each culture, experiences its own version, tuned by need, by environment, and by survival. To a fly, we are lumbering giants, moving through molasses. To a whale, we are quick sparks on the surface, flashing in and out of existence. To your dog, the hours you are away are marked not by the clock, but by the fading of your scent. So when you think about time, remember that your seconds and minutes are not the same as theirs. They are your brain's construction, your way of slicing the flow of the universe into pieces you can handle. But other creatures slice it differently. Their realities unfold in other rhythms, and those rhythms are no less real than yours. As you picture this, imagine yourself slipping into another creature's timeline. Imagine seeing the world through a fly's eyes, each moment slowed and stretched, every motion clear. Imagine living as a tortoise, where nothing is rushed, and a single afternoon is a small piece of a long, slow century. Imagine being a mayfly, where every second matters because there are so few. Time is elastic, not only for us, but for every living thing. And as you breathe here, slowly, quietly, you may notice that your own time is already shifting. Each breath a little slower, each word a little gentler. Perhaps you feel the seconds stretching too, like the rhythm of a tortoise or the drift of a whale in the sea. You are part of this great orchestra of time, one rhythm among many. If our brains truly kept perfect time, like a flawless clock, life would be much simpler. A second would always feel like a second. A minute would always feel like a minute. But as you've already seen, our sense of time is flexible. It bends under fear, it stretches with novelty, it shrinks with routine. And sometimes it does something even stranger. Sometimes our perception of time breaks entirely, giving us illusions that reveal just how fragile our inner clock really is. One of the simplest examples is called the stopped clock illusion. You probably experienced it. You glance quickly at an analog clock, and for a moment, the second hand seems frozen. It looks like it's stuck in place, motionless, as if time itself paused. Then suddenly, it jumps forward and resumes its normal ticking. The illusion lasts only an instant, but it feels real. For those few seconds, time itself seems broken. What's really happening here is that your eyes are playing a trick. When you move your eyes quickly from one place to another, a motion called a saccade, your brain suppresses the blur. If it didn't, every time your eyes darted, the world would smear like a camera in motion. To keep vision steady, your brain erases that blur. And to fill in the gap, it stretches the first image you see after the eye movement. When you land on the clock, your brain freezes that image for a fraction of a second longer than it should. That stretch creates the illusion that the second hand is paused. You don't see the blur of your own eye movement, but you feel the stretch of false time. In this tiny illusion, your brain is editing reality for you. Another curious effect is called temporal binding. If two events happen close together in time, say a flash of light and a beep of sound, your brain sometimes merges them, perceiving them as simultaneous, even if they're not. The brain has a narrow window in which it smooths out events, binding them into one. This is useful because it keeps the world coherent. If your senses didn't align, the world would seem chaotic. Footsteps and voices constantly out of sync, lights and sounds colliding out of order. But the price of this editing is that your sense of precise timing is an illusion. Your brain shifts, stretches, and merges events, rewriting time to make the world feel smoother. This smoothing shows up in daily life. Watching a movie, for instance, you don't notice the tiny delays between sound and image. Your brain lines them up, even if the audio is off by a fraction of a second. Watching someone clap from far away, you see the motion and hear the sound slightly later, but your mind still merges them. Reality and perception don't always match, but your brain quietly edits the gap. There are also illusions created by drugs or altered states of mind. Psychedelic substances like LSD or psilocybin are famous for distorting time. Minutes can feel like hours. People describe living whole lifetimes in a single evening. The mechanism isn't fully understood, but researchers believe it involves serotonin and dopamine systems in the brain, disrupting the usual pacemaker rhythms and enhancing sensory input. The brain takes in far more detail than usual, flooding the system with impressions. And so, the moments expand. On the other hand, depressants like alcohol can compress time. Hours of drinking may vanish into a haze, with memory failing to capture much of it. Stimulants like caffeine can speed up perception, making the world feel sharp and fast, while marijuana often slows it, stretching seconds into minutes. These chemical illusions show how fragile our inner clock is. Tweak the chemistry, and time itself changes. Meditation provides a different kind of illusion. People who meditate deeply often report losing track of time entirely. They may feel as if they have been sitting for hours, only to discover that 30 minutes have passed. Or they may feel as if no time has passed at all, entering what is sometimes described as a timeless present. Here, attention is so focused or so detached that the brain stops counting pulses in the usual way. The clock doesn't just stretch or shrink, it disappears. Something similar happens in flow states, those rare moments when you are completely absorbed in what you're doing. A writer working late into the night, a musician lost in playing, an athlete fully in motion, all describe hours vanishing unnoticed. Attention is so locked onto the task that the brain no longer checks the clock. The usual pacing of time dissolves, replaced by immersion. Flow is one of the few times when losing track of time feels like a gift. Even boredom can create illusions. Waiting in line at a store or staring at a loading screen can make minutes feel endless. But when you look back later, you barely remember them. Boredom stretches the present but compresses the past. This is the opposite of fear, which feels fast in the present but slow in memory. Time illusions are not uniform. They depend on how the brain encodes the moment. There are also cultural illusions. In some cultures, time is experienced more fluidly, less bound by strict schedules. A conversation might last until it naturally ends, rather than being cut short by the clock. People in these cultures often describe time as flowing, rather than being measured. By contrast, in cultures where punctuality is emphasized, people become hyper-aware of the ticking minutes. Waiting 5 minutes feels long, even unbearable. Here, culture shapes illusion. One particularly striking illusion comes from dreams. Have you ever had a dream that felt like it lasted all night? only to wake and realize it was just a few minutes of REM sleep. In dreams, time is elastic. A single moment of brain activity can generate an entire storyline, complete with beginning, middle, and end. Some people have even practiced lucid dreaming, training themselves to be aware while dreaming and trying to measure time inside the dream. The results suggest that dream time can run close to real time, but with enough distortion to make hours feel like minutes, or minutes like hours. These illusions remind us of an important truth. Time, as you feel it, is not the same as time on a clock. It is an active construction, constantly being edited, smoothed, stretched, and compressed by your brain. You're not just living in time. You are building it moment by moment. So as you reflect on these illusions, you might think back to your own experiences. Have you ever glanced at a clock and felt the hand stop? Have you ever been so bored that 5 minutes felt like an eternity, only to forget it later? Have you ever been so absorbed in something you loved that hours disappeared in a blink? These are not just quirks. They are windows into the machinery of your mind. And as you sit here now listening, maybe you feel your own perception of time bending slightly. The words may be stretching the moment, or softening it, or carrying you gently forward into the next. This, too, is an illusion, a sweet one, the illusion of calm time slowing, smoothing, preparing you for rest. So far, we've explored how your brain bends time. But there's another layer to this mystery. Time itself can bend, not just in your head, not just in memory or perception, but in the very fabric of the universe. And the person who showed us this was Albert Einstein. Before Einstein, most people thought of time as absolute, a universal clock, ticking the same everywhere, steady and unchanging. Isaac Newton described it this way, as a kind of invisible stage on which the play of the universe unfolded. Space was the stage, time was the ticking background, and objects moved across it. That picture made sense for centuries, but in the early 1900s, Einstein shattered it. Einstein showed that space and time are not separate. They are woven together into something called space-time. And space-time isn't fixed. It bends and warps depending on speed and gravity. This means that time does not flow the same everywhere. It can stretch, it can shrink, it can even nearly stop under the right conditions. One of Einstein's key discoveries was special relativity. Imagine two people, one standing on Earth and the other traveling in a spaceship at nearly the speed of light. From the perspective of the traveler, time moves normally. They eat, sleep, and think, just as we do. But from the perspective of the person left on Earth, the traveler's clock is ticking more slowly. A year in the spaceship might equal 10 years on Earth. This effect is called time dilation. The faster you move, the slower time passes for you compared to someone at rest. It sounds impossible, but it has been proven. Scientists have taken atomic clocks, our most precise timekeepers, and put them on airplanes, flying them around the world. When compared to identical clocks that stayed on the ground, the flying clocks showed tiny but measurable differences. The faster they moved, the slower they ticked. Not by much, just billionths of a second, but enough to prove Einstein was right. Gravity also bends time. This is part of Einstein's general relativity. Picture space-time as a stretchy fabric. Massive objects like planets and stars press into that fabric, creating dents. The stronger the gravity, the deeper the dent. And in those dents, time itself slows. A clock placed near a massive object will run more slowly than one farther away. This has also been tested. In one famous experiment, scientists placed atomic clocks at different altitudes. The clocks at the top of a tower, farther from Earth's gravity, ticked slightly faster than the clocks at the bottom. The difference was tiny, but real. Gravity literally slowed time at the lower level. You might wonder, does this matter in daily life? It does. The GPS in your phone relies on satellites orbiting Earth. Those satellites experience weaker gravity, so their clocks run a little faster than ours. They also move quickly, which makes their clocks run slower due to speed. Both effects have to be corrected. Without Einstein's equations, GPS would drift off by kilometers every day. Every time you use a map app to find a coffee shop, you are depending on relativity. There are also cosmic consequences. Near a black hole, where gravity is unimaginably strong, time slows dramatically. To an observer far away, someone near the black hole would appear frozen, their seconds stretched into eternity. To the person near the black hole, their own time would feel normal, but the rest of the universe would seem to speed by. Science fiction has played with this idea for decades. In the movie Interstellar, astronauts visiting a planet near a black hole experience hours, while years pass for those waiting elsewhere. This is not fantasy. It is real physics. All of this might sound remote, but think about the poetry of it. Time is not a single river flowing the same for everyone. It is a collection of streams running at different speeds depending on where you are and how fast you move. Your seconds are not quite the same as someone else's. And yet, from within your own stream, it feels ordinary. This is the strange beauty of relativity. Time bends, but your experience of it always feels steady. Even without spaceships or black holes, you can feel the echo of relativity in your own life. Consider how different places seem to carry different rhythms. A quiet mountain village, where the air is thin and the world feels vast, has a different tempo than a crowded city street. Part of this is psychological, but part of it is also real. Clocks on the mountain actually tick faster than clocks at sea level, because they are farther from Earth's gravity. You may not notice the difference, but it's there. Einstein himself once described time in a more human way. He said, "When you sit with a pretty girl for 2 hours, it seems like 2 minutes. But when you sit on a hot stove for 2 minutes, it seems like 2 hours." He was speaking playfully, but his point was serious. Time is relative, not just in physics, but in perception, in experience, in feeling. The science and the psychology mirror each other. Both tell us the same truth. Time is not fixed. It changes with perspective. So the next time you glance at your phone's GPS or look up at the night sky, remember that you are living inside this flexible fabric. Time is flowing differently all around you, bending with speed, bending with gravity. And you are part of that flow moving through a universe where the clock is not absolute, but elastic. And as you rest here, you can let that thought soften you. Imagine time as a gentle fabric, stretching and folding around you, carrying you easily forward. Not rigid, not demanding, but soft and fluid. Your seconds here may feel slow or fast, but they are always yours. Relativity is not just physics, it is also comfort. The reminder that your stream of time is unique and that it is enough. We've explored the brain's inner clocks, the way fear and novelty stretch time, the differences between childhood and adulthood, the strange worlds of other creatures, the illusions that trick us, and even Einstein's bending of space-time itself. But let's come back now gently to something more personal, something close to your daily life. How you feel time day by day, how you can, in small ways, influence it. Think first about stress. Stress has a way of distorting the clock. When you are anxious, waiting for a result, sitting in traffic, or facing a deadline, the minutes feel endless. Your body is tense, your mind is restless, and your attention is fixed on each passing second. The brain counts every pulse, stretching time until it feels unbearable. Yet strangely, when you look back later, those stressful minutes collapse. You hardly remember them at all. Stress lengthens time in the present, but shortens it in memory. This is why whole weeks of stress can blur into nothing. They were lived tightly, painfully, but not richly. Now think of boredom. Boredom is like a cousin of stress. In the moment, it stretches time endlessly. The classroom clock ticking slowly, the dull meeting, the long wait in line, each minute is swollen and heavy. But just like stress, boredom leaves few memories. Looking back, you hardly recall it. Hours vanish, not because they were fast, but because they were empty. Compare that to moments of joy. A dinner with friends, a walk in a new place, a day spent laughing. In the moment, joy often feels fast. Hours pass quickly, but later the memory is full. It stretches in recall. You might say, that weekend felt long, in a good way. Joy compresses time in the present, but lengthens it in memory. This is why filling life with joy makes it feel longer. Sleep plays a role too. When you are well rested, your sense of time is sharper. The day feels clear. But when you are sleep deprived, time warps. Nights drag on endlessly when you can't sleep, while days blur into haze. Sleep organizes memory, which in turn organizes time. Without it, hours lose their shape. Mindfulness, simply paying attention, can also reshape time. When you slow down and notice details, each moment becomes richer. The smell of your tea, the pattern of light on the wall, the sound of distant birds. These are the kinds of details your brain usually ignores. But when you notice them, you thicken the moment. Time feels fuller. This is why meditation often brings a sense of spaciousness. By focusing on the present, you step out of the rushing stream of worry and return to the wide river of now. Technology, on the other hand, often does the opposite. Scrolling endlessly through feeds, clicking from one distraction to the next, can make hours vanish without notice. You may spend an evening staring at a glowing screen only to look up and realize that bedtime has come and gone. Where did those hours go? The brain didn't record them. They were too repetitive, too thin. They left no trail in memory, and so they disappear. Technology can make time vanish not by speeding it up, but by starving it of richness. The practical lesson here is simple. If you want your days to feel longer, fill them with details. Notice small things. Seek new experiences. Break routines, even in small ways. Take a walk in a place you've never been. cook a recipe you've never tried. Speak to someone new. These small acts add novelty, attention, and memory. They thicken time. They make a single day feel wide. This doesn't mean every moment should be busy. In fact, rushing through tasks can make time vanish faster. Instead, it's about presence. When you wash the dishes, notice the warmth of the water, the sound of the plates. When you eat, taste carefully. When you rest, really rest. These are the ways to slow time without doing more. And there's another kind of practical wisdom, perspective. Remember that time is not just a clock on the wall, it is your perception, your memory, your experience. If you feel that life is rushing by, it is not a failure of the world. It is a sign that your brain is on autopilot. You can wake it gently by changing how you live. Think of it this way. Imagine two people. One lives the same routine every day, never noticing details, always rushing. To them, a decade might feel short, vanishing into blur. The other person seeks novelty, pays attention, slows down to notice. To them, a decade feels full, stretched wide with memory. The difference is not in the number of hours. They are the same. The difference is in how they were lived. And perhaps this is the deepest lesson of time perception. You cannot add more hours to your life, but you can add more life to your hours. By noticing, by learning, by savoring, you thicken time. You make your life feel longer, richer, more generous. So as you listen now, ask yourself, what makes time feel full for you? Is it learning something new? Is it being with people you love? Is it being outdoors, seeing beauty? Those are the anchors of your time. They stretch your days. They give them shape. They leave you with memories that feel long when you look back. And notice, even now, the way time feels. Has this hour felt fast? Has it felt slow? Has it stretched or softened? That sensation is your own hidden clock, responding to attention, to presence, to calm. In this quiet moment, your seconds may already be stretching, becoming wider, gentler, preparing you for rest. We've wandered through a strange and beautiful landscape tonight, a landscape that is always with you, yet almost invisible, the landscape of time and how you perceive it. We began with your brain's hidden clocks, not a single ticking hand, but a network, an orchestra, keeping rhythm and pulses and beats and waves. We saw how dopamine speeds up those rhythms when life is exciting, and how it slows them when boredom sets in. Your brain is not a Swiss watch. It is a jazz band improvising. We moved into the moments of intensity, those sharp, extreme points in life where time seems to shatter. We heard how the amygdala floods memory with detail, stretching a single second into eternity during a car crash or a first skydive. We noticed how joy, awe, and even love can have the same effect, expanding time with richness, making a kiss or a birth or a laugh feel like forever. We traced the long arc from childhood to adulthood, how summers as a child seemed endless, filled with novelty and discovery, while adult years blur into a blink, lost in routine. We understood why. Memory is the ruler with which we measure time. The thicker the memory, the longer the time feels. Children record life in dense detail. Adults often skip, skim, repeat. But novelty, attention, and learning can stretch time again at any age. We stepped into the lives of other creatures, seeing how flies perceive slow motion, how dogs may smell the passing hours, how whales sing across time measured in echoes. Each species lives in its own rhythm, its own slice of time. For a mayfly, a day is a lifetime. For a tortoise, a century is a slow unfolding. Time is not one size fits all. It is as diverse as life itself. We explored illusions, the stopped clock, temporal binding, psychedelics stretching minutes into lifetimes, meditation erasing the clock altogether, dreams spinning whole stories in moments of REM. These illusions remind us that time is not a solid thing we touch. It is a creation of the brain, edited, smoothed, sometimes rewritten. We lifted our gaze to the cosmos, to Einstein's revelation that time itself is relative. Moving fast or standing in strong gravity bends time itself. Satellites circling the Earth tick differently than clocks on the ground. Near black holes, time nearly stops. Space and time are one fabric, bending together, folding. The physics of time and the psychology of time meet in one truth. Time is not fixed. It is perspective. And we brought it back to the practical, to stress, boredom, joy, and sleep, to the ways in which attention, novelty, and presence can thicken the hours, to the quiet realization that while you cannot add more hours to life, you can add more life to your hours by noticing, by savoring, by breaking routine. So what do we take from all this? Perhaps the simplest truth is this: time is both rigid and soft. It is both the steady tick of the universe and the elastic flow of your mind. It is both cosmic and personal. It bends in physics and it bends in memory. You live inside two clocks at once, the clock of the world and the clock of your perception. And sometimes those two clocks disagree. When they disagree, strange things happen. Summers stretch, years vanish, seconds freeze, hours disappear in laughter, minutes drag in boredom. Whole lives unfold in dreams. This is not an error. This is what it means to be human, to live in time, but also to create it. So as you lie here now, think of your own time. Think of the moments that felt endless. A childhood afternoon, a night of joy, a moment of fear. Think of the years that flew by almost unnoticed. Both are part of your life. Both are part of the way your brain measures time. And as you think of this, notice your breathing. Slow, steady, gentle. Each breath a small clock marking this moment. Each breath stretching the seconds a little wider. With every inhale, with every exhale, you are shaping your time, making it slower, making it softer, making it yours. Perhaps tonight, as you drift into sleep, you will dream. And in your dream, minutes may become hours, or hours may become seconds. Time will loosen its grip, bend freely, dissolve. You may live a whole story in a few moments of REM. And when you wake, you will marvel at the elasticity of it all. But for now, you don't need to worry about clocks or seconds or years. You are here, in this present, in this gentle stretch of time. Nothing is rushing you. Nothing is pulling you forward. The only rhythm you need is your breath, your heartbeat, your rest. As the seconds soften and the minutes widen, let go of the weight of schedules and routines. Let go of the worry that time is slipping too quickly. Time is not slipping. It is stretching here, now for you. You are inside it, safe, resting, floating on its current. And as you let go, as sleep rises to meet you, know this: time will always bend for you. It will stretch in joy, shrink in routine, break in dreams, and expand in love. It will always be strange, it will always be personal, and it will always be yours.